This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Today's episode is brought to you by TeePublic. Head to teepublic.animaniacast.com for a selection of designs selected by the hosts of the Animaniacast.
And welcome everybody to a Freakazoid episode of the Animaniacast.
Lady in the dress.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Freakazoid and Friends. Oh boy. It's the spin-off series of the Animaniacast. Go ahead and freak out, listeners, because today we are discussing the pilot episode of Freakazoid. We're revisiting all the cultural references and gags, and in the end we give the episode a Water Tower rating. I am Joey, and joining me once again is my brother Nathan.
Do you want to see something strange and mystical?
And across the country in Georgia, it's Kelly.
Hi there.
Hello, everybody.
I
Well, today we are talking about Freakazoid.
and friends.
And friends. We are talking about Freakazoid. Yes, indeed. Nathan made me do that new intro right there, by the way. It's growing on me. I don't know if it's going to fall off of me, too, but maybe.
Oh, it's really good.
Okay, so anyway. Today we are talking about episode 1 of Freakazoid. This is something I've been waiting for quite some time because, Freakazoid meant a lot to me growing up, at least in high school. It came to me around the right time, at least for my adolescent brain, 1995 when I was a sophomore in high school. And that's a sophomore, I think, aren't they called wise fools? Isn't that the...
Yeah.
So I think that
Perfect.
this show is very wise and foolish at the same time. Well, tell me, Kelly, this was your first experience with Freakazoid, right? So you don't really have any memories of watching this. I know you've probably heard of the show though before, right?
Yeah, I mean, the theme song, I guess it would come on and then I'd see the opening and then change it to something else because I guess something else was on.
It's the Emmy award-winning song.
Yeah,
was
Tom
not
Rivers.
not enough to keep Kelly involved. But Nathan, tell us what are some of your memories of Freakazoid?
Oh, I loved Freakazoid. I was a big Freakazoid fan. And it still makes me laugh to this day. I really enjoy it.
I just purchased, by the way, this is where we're going to synergize and just put our little our TeePublic store in.
Mhm.
I just purchased 2 shirts from our TeePublic store. They're both Freakazoid themed. One, of course, is the Freakazoid logo, which, extra plug, has been approved by Tom Ruger. He actually bought that same shirt, so yay me. And the other shirt that I purchased was like Stranger Things, except it says Freakier Things, and it has the silhouette of Freakazoid on it. And I'll have you know that none other than the voice of Freakazoid himself, Paul Rugg, purchased that one as a sweatshirt. And so, yeah, we have merchandise endorsed by the creators of the show. I'm just saying, just, FYI. But I'm excited. I'm going to be wearing those. I'll make sure to take pictures of what they look like and everything. But let's talk about this episode in particular. If someone were to ask you about this first episode in just a few words, what would you tell them, Nathan?
I think it's funny. I think it was worth seeing. I don't know. I would say it's a good intro. I think. I mean, there could have been. I think any of these episodes could have been a pilot episode.
All right. So it's a good pilot, is what you're saying.
Sure.
Well, Kelly, this is your first experience with it, so we're waiting with bated breath. What would be some words that you would say about this episode if someone were to ask you about it?
It's different. I think he needs some Adderall or something.
Very true. Well, let's go and get into a little bit of the background of Freakazoid first. Nathan, tell us, when did this episode first premiere?
Oh, this episode first premiered on September 5th, 1995. It was a Saturday, and it was the same Saturday that the Pinky the Brain episode, and it was 2 episodes of Animaniacs. I've said so much about it, but I'll say one other thing. Rayman, the first game of that series, came out like a week before this episode.
What, Rayman Rabbits? Is that...
Rayman, like Legends it is now, but I don't know. It's like Rayman. There's a whole series of them, but it came out for the PS3 about a week before.
Not familiar.
Well, fine. I've said too many things about it. Oh, how about a week before the movie The Prophecy came out, which got $16 million, or cost. It was a horror film. I never heard of it.
Never heard of it either.
You know,
there was not much to do that day.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I'm a little confused because I thought that, and I think in Tucson, WGN showed Kids WB Saturday morning lineup on Sundays instead of the Saturday. But did Pinky and the Brain? I know that Pinky and the Brain was a primetime series, right?
I think they moved it to Sundays, but the very first one was Saturday morning, I believe.
Oh, okay. Good to know. At least that's what we're thinking.
Yeah, the next, so the first episode was Saturday, September 9th, and then the next episode of Pinky and the Brain was on the 17th.
Okay.
It was just a Sunday.
So a Sunday night from there on.
And then, yes, every night it was a Wednesday, but yeah.
And of course, this could all be wrong because we're just going off of Wikipedia stuff.
I remember, Joey.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, let's talk about Freakazoid in general because, first of all, where can you watch Freakazoid? This is not on Hulu.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but you can't watch Freakazoid.
We have theories of why.
Yeah, the theory that I have is that it's might be because of all the stock footage and stuff they show. And whenever you show that stock footage, you run the risk of having to pay royalties to some other filmmakers or somebody you don't have the rights to. Which
isn't that the problem with Muppet Babies?
Yeah, Muppet Babies for years and years has not been able to be shown. But now that, I think it's a good chance of it being released now, don't you think? Especially if Disney basically owns every movie company in the world, and now that they own 20th Century Fox completely.
One good thing
Disney already owned the Muppets. Oh, but you're talking about like the Star Wars footage.
Yeah, they showed so much footage of other movies and everything. Like, unless it was an MGM movie or something like that they would walk into, then there's a good chance they might be able to show some of it. So
yeah, I think there's something like only about 5 different movie companies now.
Yeah.
It's insane. Well, transition, looking for one, can't do it, moving on. So you can't find Freakazoid on Hulu, but where you can find Freakazoid is on the streaming service Verve or VRV, I believe it is. And Verve is, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are already familiar with it because it has a lot of old classic, well, I say classic, more like 90s animation in it, and a bunch of anime and things like that. So if you're a fan of those kinds of things, then you probably already know a little bit about Verve. And that's where you can watch Freakazoid actually for free. It will show you some commercials. And if you become like a premium subscriber or something like that to it, you can actually watch the Freakazoid series without any commercials.
There's other places you can watch it too.
Where?
Like on a DVD.
Yeah.
You can purchase it through Amazon.animaniacast.com.
That's true. You can.
So
you can get both seasons right there.
Yeah. And they have like special features that way. So.
And the special features are really, really good for these Freakazoid episodes.
And no commercials.
And no commercials. That works out too. There's actually a really cool deal on, though, right now over at Walmart. And, we always want to promote Walmart and make sure they get enough money.
They don't get enough,
But this is such a good deal that I had to make sure our listeners know about it. You can get the first volume of Animaniacs, the first volume of Pinky and the Brain, the first 2 volumes of Tiny Toons, and the first volume of Freakazoid. It's an in-store only deal, but they're for $14.95. You can get those volumes. And the really cool thing about it is, once you purchase it, they give you a Voodoo code, the Voodoo streaming service.
Mm.
And then you can use that code to then get additional things. So you could technically get like Tiny Toons or Animaniacs Volume 1 and then go online and then put in the code and then get Freakazoid for free.
Boom.
So, and you can you get 2. So you can get like Batman the Animated Series Volume 1 as well. So that is perhaps the best deal right now to get it. Like get 3 things for the price of $15. I think that's a great deal. Personally. Speaking of Batman the Animated Series, that kind of goes into the origins of Freakazoid itself, because Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, I believe, were both approached by Steven Spielberg to make a superhero cartoon. Of course, we all know that Bruce Timm and Paul Dini were behind Batman the Animated Series. And, of course, it was a huge success for the Fox network. I believe the reason it didn't go to the Kids WB is there must have been some sort of contract that it was so successful that Fox signed it on, for X amount of years.
Yeah.
Because it didn't actually go over to Kids WB until, 1997.
Yeah, eventually it did, but
yeah.
Same with, they had Superman and Batman around that time.
Yeah, I love the Superman show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway. Steven Spielberg said to Bruce Timm he'd love to make this Freakazoid show. So Bruce Timm got together and they did some models for the different drawings.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually designed what Freakazoid would look like. They also designed a bunch of other characters, like Cave Guy, like Jess. Is that Steph?
Steph.
And there's Jess and everything. There's
yeah,
a Jess
all the background characters.
The background characters. So many, in fact, that some of them, they didn't really have any backstory to them. They just kind of I'll get more into that in a little bit. But
yeah.
They just made a bunch of cool-looking characters. But the show that Steven Spielberg wanted to have was a lot different than the show that Bruce Timm was kind of willing to make.
He's used to making kind of a dark...
Yeah, he's used to being kind of a darker kind of show. So the Freakazoid that Bruce Timm was coming up with didn't match up with the show that Steven Spielberg wanted. So Bruce Timm said, hey, you know what? Why don't you go ahead on this one and work with Tom Ruegger, who really can up the silliness. And the ideas that Bruce Timm had for Freakazoid, his version of Freakazoid anyway, eventually kind of morphed into the Creeper, who became a character on Batman the Animated Series. Mm-hmm. And the Creeper is like this yellowish orange guy with this big red...
Yeah, he's like a coat or like a fur
coat of something.
So, yeah. I remember he's swinging on streetlights and stuff like that, but...
Yeah, he's a weird guy.
Yeah. I like Freakazoid better, but...
Personally, yes. It's not for everybody, but definitely I like Freakazoid better. But anyway, so that's kind of the origin of it. So, but because of that, you look at these models of, Steph and everybody, and they don't look the same. They don't look like the same style of Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain.
And Tiny Toons, yeah.
Yeah, it's much more of a, you look at Steph, for example, and you're like, it looks like Betty from Betty and Veronica.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very Bruce Timmish kind of look to them. And that's our background right there. And there's a lot more that's really awesome that's in the Freakazoid DVDs. And hopefully we'll have Tom Ruegger and Paul Rugg and John McCann on.
Back on.
Let's get him back on. We've had all, it's so awesome. I was watching the show today with my students, and I told them when it started off that, oh yeah, I know those people. I know Tom Ruegger and the creator of the show, and I know Paul Rugg,
we're
the voice
great
of the
friends.
Yeah, we're like besties. Yeah, right. Anyway, but anytime I can brag and slightly impress a middle school student, I'm like, success. It's cool. Anyway, so we'll have to get him back on the show again so we could talk a little bit more, because most of our conversations have just circulated around Animaniacs, not as much Freakazoid. So now we have a chance to actually talk about a little bit of Freakazoid with them.
Get that reboot started.
Sure. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the opening of today's episode. It starts off with a weather report, basically. Well, we don't know it's a weather report.
Yeah.
Terror. Terror in the night. The whipping, howling, unforgiving winds crash into the clouds, and rain falls no matter where you turn. There is no escape. No escaping the true horror.
Very dramatic reading by Freakazoid, turning into a very sunny weather report.
A sudden silence, and then screaming thunder, lightning, floods, tornadoes, famine, pestilence, fire, earthquakes, giving way to hazy afternoon sunshine. I'll be back with a 5-day forecast after this.
I showed this to the students. They had no idea what I was going to show them this afternoon, but I said, hey guys, I want you to watch this cartoon. And I'll tell you, this beginning really captivated them because Freakazoid was right up there looking right at him. And then as soon as he was all happy, they were like, what show is this? There's not really references. Well, actually, I take that back, but we'll get to it in just a minute. There is perhaps the most obscure reference I've ever heard.
Yep.
Ever in this opening part. And I'll get to that in a minute. But, Kelly, what did you think about this opening? Because this is your first exposure to Freakazoid. What are your thoughts?
I didn't know what was going on. Like you said, he's being very dramatic, and I was expecting some big storm or something, and then it sort of zooms out, and he's pointing at a weather map.
It is absolutely not what you would expect. Nathan, what were your thoughts when you saw this again?
I didn't remember the punchline, and it was exciting to hear it. I knew something was coming, of course, and I like when Freakazoid goes into the high pitch or like low, like a sudden calm silence, and then going right back into his scary voice.
Now here's the obscure reference, and I would not have ever thought of this being a cultural reference, but it was. Tom Ruger actually says in the commentary for this episode, which this series, only the first 2 episodes, but this series does have directors or creators commentary on it.
I think on episode 12 too. I think
that's true. They have a talking as it's like kind of like a video. Never mind. There's commentary. The fact is there's commentary on these Freakazoid DVDs. Even more reason to get them. But Tom Ruger mentions that this opening was actually a reference to a Marty Feldman sketch from the Dean Martin Presents the Gold Diggers show. I looked for this this morning, and I spent about 30 minutes looking through old Dean Martin clips, trying to find where Marty Feldman was doing something similar to Freakazoid like this, and I could not find it.
Until right now.
Nope.
Oh, I thought you were going to play a clip.
No, I couldn't find it. I'm sorry. Or maybe I did, and I'm going to play it right now. There it is. No, it's not. Okay. So that was incredibly obscure. Now, Marty Feldman, most people would probably know him as Igor from Young Frankenstein. And I always thought Marty Feldman was hilarious, although I'm not too familiar with much of his other work other than Young Frankenstein. But I like him in that movie.
Yeah.
Well, getting right into our theme song, the Freakazoid theme song. Of course, the music was written by Richard Stone, and then he gave the music to Tom Ruger, who wrote the lyrics for it.
Yeah, I think we talked to Tom about that on the show.
Yeah, and it seems so odd. Like, you think you would write the lyrics first, and then the music would match up with it.
That's what happened for Pinky and the Brain, for instance. He wrote the lyrics first, and then wrote the...
Well, is it? I think Pinky and the Brain was singing in the rain.
Yeah, that's why he wrote the lyrics first to that.
Well, the tune, we had the tune first in that case, too. So I
guess that's true.
Yeah.
But that's not the tune they use.
Well, that's true. Well, anyway. It's kind of flip-flop, whatever.
Yeah.
But this, of course, won an Emmy Award. It's Al Breitenbach, who I believe edited the Animaniacs suite, put this all together for the Animaniacs, for the Freakazoid theme, I should say. I say Animaniacs theme because it hits those little Tom Ruger notes. Introduce the characters, at least the major ones, and what's going on in this story. Like, we don't get to the actual origin of Freakazoid for a couple more episodes.
Yeah.
But you already knew it based upon the theme song that he got sucked into a computer, into the internet.
Dexter Douglass, computer ace, and then sucked into the internet.
Now, I will say that one of my students, when I was showing him this right here this afternoon, immediately said, "Is this like Animaniacs?" And I went, "Yes." And I was like, "Why do you think this is like Animaniacs?" He said, "Oh, well, when he's hitting those people on the head." And I was like, "Wow." I was like, that kid knows his Animaniacs theme song right there. So
yeah, just introducing, like, these are all the villains. Yeah.
These are the villains that he's going to be facing off, just like Yakko was beating the heads of the people that they were going to be bothering.
Right.
Well, let me go to you guys. What were your thoughts about the Freakazoid theme song? Let's start with you, Kelly.
Well, like I said, that's really about the only part of the show I was familiar with. But it's really catchy, and it gets in your head and it won't leave.
No, it won't. One cultural reference, Floyd the Barber. That's about the only cultural reference I could find. Of course, there's that weird chimpanzee. I don't know what movie that chimpanzee's from, but there's multiple chimpanzees.
Stock footage. It's pretty cool.
Nathan, what about you? What do you like about the theme song?
I just like that, like, it's different every week almost. At least it's a little bit. Yeah, there'd be like little changes. Like, if you pay attention, like, the chimp would be a different chip, or they would say Freakazoo instead of
Freakazoo. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just fun hearing those, and it kept me interested in the theme song. And
I love how the theme song ends with, "If not, we'll be unemployed." I just think it's such a cute theme song. It's a very funny theme song, and I've heard it hundreds of times and still like it. So that's got to be a good sign that it's good. Well, let's go to get into our first segment, and it is Dance of Doom. And Dance of Doom was written by John P. McCann, and it was directed by Ronaldo del Carmen. Ronald of the Carmen.
Perfect.
Ronald of the Carmen. Yes, indeed. Kelly, tell us what happens here in Dance of Doom.
Okay. There's a cave guy, and he holds the high school, Harry Connick Jr. High School, hostage during a dance that is in honor of daylight savings time. Which is the weirdest thing I've ever heard of. And they've been, like, standing outside, like, daylight savings time rules, yay!
At the same time, innocent high school students attended a dance in honor of daylight savings time.
Daylight savings time rules!
It's rockin', man!
I mean, it's a weird thing to be excited about, but, more power to them, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Any excuse to party. And Dexter, aka Freakazoid, is at home, and he's on his computer and researching his retirement and planning things. And his mom's like, "Don't you want to go to the dance in their dance night?" And he said he doesn't want to go. And as he says that, he's sort of reminiscing of asking these girls out, and one of them has to have something removed, and they all have these excuses as to why they can't go to the dance with him. And so he'd rather just sit at home preparing for his inevitable retirement many years in the future.
You spend far too much time with your computer. It's not healthy.
It's my life.
That's so very, very sad.
And so his parents, his mom goes downstairs and his parents are watching TV. And that's when he sees the thing about the high school being held hostage. And he's like, "That's my high school." So he freaks out and becomes Freakazoid. And he's on his way to high school, and then a cop asks him if he wants to go get a mint.
Cosgrove. You'll learn more about Cosgrove later. Don't worry, Kelly.
Okay, will I understand why they went for a mint?
Because it's minty and it's delicious.
Okay.
It'll all make sense by the end.
But just a mint, singular?
Yeah, they went for a mint.
mint.
You don't want to overindulge.
Okay.
Ooh, I gotta say, that was one fine mint.
Sure was. Oh, by the way, we're needed over at that hostage thing at Harry Connick High.
That's right! Duty calls! Hello, Duty! I'm coming!
Freakazoid goes to the high school, and he takes the opportunity to fuss at the ladies who turned him down for the dance. They have no idea that he's actually Dexter in disguise. But he's like, you lied. You lied about, having something else to do tonight.
Steph, you fibbed to Dex about washing your hair. If this were an after-school special, you'd pay a bittersweet price for your little deceit. Like getting big oily zits or eating off the same plate as David Lee Roth. Ew. Ugh. Go! Oh! Ew! Oh, it's the plate! And he's been on it! Don't you Oh! Think about it! I'll be over talking with Jill!
The caveman, who actually is pretty refined. I mean, he actually can speak well.
His name is Royce Mumphrey, by the way. He's not just cave guy. But yes, his real name is Royce Mumphrey. He's very dignified.
He wants to go and hang out at the Hamptons, but he's holding people hostage at the high school, and so Freakazoid confronts him, and at some point or multiple points actually, he turns into the director. I mean, not really.
Yes.
His voice does. I mean, he's still Freakazoid, but it's like, wait a minute, I know that voice. And
it's exactly what I thought when I saw this episode for the first time, and it got me excited because I was like, "Oh, Mr. Direct! That's the guy who does Mr. Director."
Yeah, yeah. So he totally does the Mr. Director thing.
Low bridge, everybody down. Low bridge, cave guy's underwear is brown, brown, brown. It looks like he's got the cooties, ooty. Goodbye. Stop the singing now. End the singing song. Stop, go. Enough with the song. Stop. Bring it down. Calm down. Stop. Shh. Everybody's go with me. Shh. On this side of the room. Shh. Everybody down.
Yeah, he has everybody kind of get down and get quiet at the in the dance, and then pretty much saves the day.
Yeah,
It's a very short,
he ends up he jumps up on a basketball hoop, and the cave guy tries to grab
the backboard.
And
they're both pulling the backboard.
They're both pulling it so that and Freakazoid has a very funny line. He says, "I love you." And but eventually crashes it down on his
he
head.
just lets it go, so the cave guy
crashes it. They lock him up, and then all the girls are very much like, except for what's her name again? Jess, I think her name is.
Yeah, I think Jess.
Jess is not impressed with Freakazoid being silly.
Stupid.
The other two girls are, and Steph is the only one we see again, the blonde one, by the way. The other two girls, Kelly, you'll never see again.
Oh, wow.
You'll never see them again.
I always thought there was going to be a secret, romance.
Yeah, like a Betty and Veronica kind of thing between the blonde and the brunette, perhaps.
And Freakazoid girlfriend would have been,
Well, it's like the first skit or segment, I guess, where you don't know what's going on and you think it's some dramatic storm or something like that, and then it's actually a weather map. It's subverting expectations.
Yes.
So basically, the creators of Freakazoid are like Ryan Johnson.
I hope they take that as a compliment, right?
No, I mean, I have nothing against him. Yoda is in the
Last Jedi.
Yeah. So I have nothing against Rian Johnson. I think he's awesome because Yoda, and it's also a good movie. So yeah, but no, it's. I'm just kind of.
But it's true. You think you're going to go. You think it's going to. You think the thing is going to go one direction, and it doesn't. And I think a great example of that is Jeepers. You have this whole plot line,
this subplot going on.
Subplot of Jeepers, who has a mystical watch.
An ordinary watch, you say? Hardly. For it has a secret power. A bizarre power. The power to turn beavers into gold.
And of course, a pet store
that has
beavers in the window.
But beavers, yeah.
Goes to the beaver pet store and transforms two beavers that are just gnawing on some wood, midnight, chowing down. But
it's kind of like he's a MacGuffin, but I mean, he's not an object they're searching for, but it's sort of similar in that regard.
But you're like, this bad he's going to come at the end, and he's going to really, like, Freakazoid's going to take care of the cave guy, but then right at the end, here comes Jeepers, or... Actually, we don't even know his name.
Yeah, he doesn't have a name in this episode.
I didn't realize until, like, the third time watching it that Freakazoid calls him Jeepers.
You want to see something strange and mystical?
No! Get out of here with that watch! Lay off the poor beavers, will you? Jeez! You're a creep! Go away! We're having a good time until you showed up, Jeepers! Go have some coffee with cream or something! Because I'll tell you something! This is a happy place!
But the way he says his name, it almost sounds like Freakazoid is saying, just the expression Jeepers.
Yeah, and it might have it probably came out as that, because that whole rant is it's all improv. So
yeah, there is so much improv, by the way, Kelly, in this. In fact, there's the opening part of Freakazoid, freaking out and then going hello and everything.
I'm in the show.
A lot of that was improv, and of course, a lot of the interactions that he has in the dance are completely improv by Paul Rugg.
Everybody down.
Everybody down.
Yeah.
I think he said in the commentary that John McCann wrote Low Bridge, Everybody Down.
He just wrote Low Bridge, and then everything after that is...
And then everything else is kind of improv from there. So there's a lot of things to talk about in the commentary, how this was Paul Rugg's audition, was actually the stuff that we hear is actually the audition that Paul Rugg put out. And they had other people come in to audition for Freakazoid, but everybody was like, we're going to be freaky, so they just kind of did Robin Williams impressions and things like that. And they were like, it's not really what we want. So you know how these things are. You go, you try it out. You're writing the show. So he tried it and he sounded perfect. And apparently there's somewhere, maybe Tom Ruger has it somewhere. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be funny to find like the actual track? But he said it goes on for like 10 minutes of this improv of like everybody down, and it goes on forever and ever. And every time that he would think like, okay, I gotta stop it now, Tom would just keep going. Keep going.
If he would look over in the booth and see Tom laughing, he's like, I guess this is good, because you're doing improv in an empty room.
Yes.
He's saying it's just like...
But he would just see Tom... We hear this from a lot of the people that we've interviewed and we've talked to, is that if you saw Tom Ruger in the booth doubled over or just kind of like laughing, laughing, you knew you were doing a good job. I think we heard that from the Good Feathers, and even I think when Paul was on as well, he said something similar. And just from our experience with talking with Tom, it's true. And you see Tom has a very big laugh, and you'll see him kind of, because we video Skype with him when he's on the show, and you'll see him kind of like bouncing around the place, laughing every now and then. And it is, I can only imagine what that would have looked like actually in the creation of the show. So very, very cool to see. So Jeepers is thrown away. He'll be back in the second season of Animaniacs, or keep saying Animaniacs. He'll be back in the second season of Freakazoid, and until then, we have Freakazoid partnered up with this other brunette girl, whom I forget her name because it's not important. She's never seen again.
Valerie. And Jill was the other.
Jill. Okay.
So.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, so other people don't have to tweet me. Although some people like to live tweet as we're talking, so that's
which
always
is fine too.
That's always fine. And I go, yeah, we already keep listening. Well, anyway.
Shut up. That's John Mariano. He's the voice of Bobby from The Goodfeathers. And you're listening to the Animaniacast. Will you untie me now? Shh, go it. I'm listening to the program.
Let's go ahead and talk about some of the references that are in this. We have a quick appearance by Batman, in case you couldn't figure out who that was.
Who at the time was not on the network, but later on would be on the WB network.
Indeed. I think the biggest, at least the most obscure reference in this is when Freakazoid is operating the ventriloquism, not mannequin, what do they call them? Marionette.
Mm-hmm.
And he says at the end, "Pull the string."
Why was there a mint seed? Did it reveal character? How was the story advanced? We may never know. But now,
on with the adventures of Freakazoid! Pull the string!
And I loved that line as a kid. Like, I would watch it.
I don't know what it's
from. No
from.
idea what it's from. I just thought it was funny because he's talking funny. Isn't that funny? It turns out he said that because they were watching the movie Ed Wood. Oh gosh, now I can't even think of the director's name. Tim Burton.
Tim Burton.
Yeah, the Tim Burton Ed Wood movie.
I've seen it.
And in the scene, Martin Landau plays Bela Lugosi. So it's a reference to Bela Lugosi speaking in Glenn or Glenda, but it's even a little bit additional layer on top of that. In fact, it's Martin Landau doing Bela Lugosi. So you have Freakazoid doing Martin Landau doing Bela Lugosi. There you go.
Layers upon layers.
And this is something,
Yes.
the kids are going to get this joke. So
Totally going to get it. It's, as they say in the commentary, that so far we have Martin Landau and we have Marty Feldman, things going on. So kids love this stuff.
Beware. Take care. Be fair. Wait! Pull the string! Pull the string! Cut. Perfect.
They mentioned some people like what they have Jean-Claude Van Damme, right? Van Damme,
David Lee Roth.
David Lee Roth, Minnie Pearl. Minnie Pearl is perhaps the most obscure one. Minnie Pearl was on Hee Haw, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
My granny loved Hee Haw.
See, Hee Haw was one of those, and I can only imagine in Georgia how it was probably even stronger than in here. But even in Arizona, I remember, there's a big country. There's a lot of country fans here in Arizona, obviously. And I remember my aunt and uncle liked that show when I was a little kid. Used to see it quite often. I would only pay attention to it if there was like some jokes going on, or if the cartoon Donkey was on.
Oh yeah. I only remember them like hanging out in like haystacks or corn stalks or something and joking with each other. And then I do remember Minnie Pearl she had like it's like a tea bag or something on her head.
I think it was a price tag.
Price tag.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a tea bag. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Granny was always making sweet tea, and she made the best sweet tea because, down here in the South, that's all we drink is sweet tea. And so I just always assumed it was like a tea bag or something. But I think you're right. It's probably a price tag.
The last thing I think we should mention is really the Low Bridge song. I love that part so much. I remember rewind. I remember hysterically laughing to this low bridge thing as a kid. And I was in high school drama at the time. And I went to our thespian conference, and I remember reciting this to people and doing my best impression of Freakazoid as I could, which I gotta say, it was weird. I played the episode twice during the day today during school. I played it during lunch kind of in the background. And when Freakazoid first started talking, some of the kids thought that I was on TV. They're like, is that you? They like turned around, they saw a cartoon. They're like, I thought that was you. And I'm like, well, I guess he really rubbed off on me then as a kid, because now apparently I act and at least talk like Freakazoid from time to time. So I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you very much. But yes, I would always go to the people in my drama class and go, low bridge, everybody down. Low bridge, cave guy's underwear is brown. Brown. I still know the whole thing. It's great, which is insane because I had no idea it was improv. To me, it was like, this is perfectly written.
Ooh.
So masterfully written.
Yeah, everyone on this side of the room.
On this side of the room. Sing with me now. But that was it for the references. But let's go talk to Nathan. What are some moments? Obviously, I love the low bridge thing. That's probably my favorite part of this whole opening thing. But what are some things that you particularly liked?
I mean, just Jeepers is so funny. Just the yelling at the very end that he goes off on. And then Dexter's mom, the character model on that, just
an insane smile.
Yeah. And is that Tress McNeil that does her voice?
Yes. It's like if Mrs. Cleaver was like insane. Like she looked like just an insane ventriloquism dummy. And Dexter's dad, we should mention, is voiced by John P. McCann.
Mm-hmm. And he does very funny jokes too. That whole all the pizza rolls. Your mom ate them all.
Yeah, that makes me laugh each time. And just how happy she is. I was peckish.
Are there any pizza rolls left?
Your mother ate them all 24.
I was peckish. I could make some more.
Kelly, what are some moments that stood out for you that you thought were good?
Well, I did like the David Lee Roth stuff. I thought that was really funny. Because he went on about that for a while.
He did the after school special stuff, which I don't remember. Was David Lee Roth ever in an after school special? I just remember him being on Van Halen, but what an after school special that would be if David Lee Roth was involved.
I don't think so. But there used to be a lot of after school specials, so who knows?
Who knows? But he is kind of a disgusting, weird guy, so you definitely would not want to eat off a plate that David Lee Roth had eaten on, because that is gross. Sure.
It would not even be something I would ever think of.
Yep. Well, you can, again, thank Paul Rugg's weird improv brain for that line coming out, because this is just, it's weird stuff.
And when he was sort of confronting the girls that rejected him, I just thought that was kind of funny.
Hi, Jill. I understand you had something removed. Maybe that something was your heart! Just kidding. I'm sure it was a mole or something gross. Ew.
Commercials, then more Freakazoid.
Freakazoid will be right back on Kids WB.
Hey, Robert, why should people listen to another retro gaming podcast?
You mean our cast, David? We do have to keep this short, you know.
Yes, well, I guess we should start with the fact we celebrate old school video games.
And we have awesome guests and game giveaways. Don't forget that.
Plus our game show and your favorite segment, Random Select.
Don't remind me. Are we done yet?
Listen to our cast, another retro gaming podcast, part of RetroZap.com.
Finally, back to my beer.
Do you like the Animaniacs? Well, the Podcoin app pays you to listen to this podcast, and in fact, every podcast. It's the podcast player that pays. Here's how it works. You listen to podcasts, and then you earn Podcoin while you listen, and then you turn that Podcoin in for gift cards at places like Amazon or Starbucks, or if you're a charitable type, you can even donate that Podcoin to charity. The more you listen, the more you earn. Download the app right now on iPhone or Android, and I have a special code for you. Simply use our code Animaniacs, and you'll get 300 Podcoin just for signing up. And if you listen to us enough on there, you could get a cappuccino at Starbucks. So go ahead and listen to this podcast or virtually any podcast on Podcoin and sign up with the code Animaniacs today.
Kids WB continues with more Freakazoid.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to the center section, sort of. It's a song. It's the Animaniacs theme, in a way. It's Freakazoid and Friends.
It's time for Freakazoid and Friends, where the insanity never ends. Just as he defends, you're sure to get the bends from Freakazoid and Friends.
Kid, I was watching this with the students in my after-school class, and they thought they were going to watch Animaniacs all of a sudden. They're like, oh, I love this show. And then Freakazoid jumped down.
Oh, yeah, because immediately the Warners are out there.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I love this show. I love this show. And then Freakazoid jumps down and starts bouncing on the Warner Brothers lot, and they're like, wait a second. But there are lots of different characters that are introduced in this song. Some of them, Kelly, spoiler alert, never appear again. Which
I always got excited about one in particular.
Yeah, I'll run through them. So we have Loeb and Booger Beast, Candlejack, Cobra Queen, Cave Guy, Fanboy, Moron, a character named Eye of Newt, which is that giant eyeball, never seen again.
I think it's like based off Newt
Gingrich. That's Newt Gingrich's hair on top of an giant eyeball. So Eye of Newt.
I saw him at the mall one time.
I think you said, you know what, you mentioned that, but I remember you talking about it. Yeah.
I mean, that was it. I didn't really even know who he was. I mean, I think I knew the name because how can you not remember the name Newt? But we were at the mall, and my mom's like, "Oh, there's Newt Gingrich," and I don't know if she was excited or sad or know what her political leanings were at that point. But it was like, "Oh, okay, that's that guy I hear about on the." I mean, I was little. I was like super young, but I just remember that name.
Yeah, it's hard.
Why would you name your child Newt? She turned me into a newt.
Anyway. Well, some of the other characters that we show real quick are, of course, Steph is getting work done on her teeth, apparently. I don't know. Never used Freakazoid as your dentist, by the way. I don't think that would be a good idea. Roddy McStew, who's jumping up and down in a kilt. He's shown Lord Bravery, the Gnomes, Cosgrove, the Huntsman, Toby Danger, and Freakazette.
The lovely shade of blue.
And then it's kind of, it introduces more of the characters. It's kind of like a good alternate theme song to the series, but I'm glad they went with the theme that they used. It'd be very weird if they decided to do the exact
same. Oh my gosh.
Wouldn't that be so confusing? Like, I don't think people would like the show that much if they like, oh, I'm going to watch Animaniacs. Wait a minute. What is this? It would just get too
Freakazoid
confusing.
and Friends isn't a good name, except for a podcast.
Oh, boy. Well, Nathan, I think I know what you're going to talk about. What did you like about this theme, and what did you not like about the theme?
I liked Freakazette, and I'm very excited to see an episode about Freakazette.
Well, I hate to tell you this, Nathan, but Freakazette doesn't appear
until the reboot.
Nope. Well, maybe.
That's why we need a reboot. I need Freakazette.
No Freakazette. And I'll talk more about Freakazette in just a second because I had some students that were very curious about Freakazette and just they initially saw her too. They were excited. But Kelly, what did you think about this theme song?
Oh, I thought it was cute. I mean, of course, it was the Animaniacs tune and everything. But there was a lot going on with it, with all the name dropping all the different characters.
Did you notice a cameo during the theme song?
No, I tried to watch pretty carefully. There was a lot going on.
Kelly, you're going to have to watch it again. You know, they're showing at one point they show the ratings and how the ratings are going down
into the toilet.
Well, sitting there at the conference table
is Steven Spielberg.
It's Steven Spielberg. I didn't want to mention it. I was like, Kelly's going to say this.
If I'd watched it on a TV, or the DVD, I may have noticed, but I was watching it on my phone. Yeah. So, it was a pretty small screen.
Steven.
So that's my excuse, but I'm I'm tormented to know I miss
You
Steven.
missed him.
You have to rewatch it.
I always look for him. Like, anytime I see some, a new episode of anything that I hadn't seen before, I'm always like, oh, they're going to put like a Steven Spielberg cameo in here somewhere because I don't want to miss it.
Well,
Went by too fast.
it's Steven Spielberg is sitting there at the conference table, and a caricature of Gene McCurdy is actually
They're
right next
very
to it,
bored.
looking very bored and upset at the Freakazoid ratings, which ironically it's self-referential to the point that they didn't know that the ratings are going to be as low as I think they ended up being, unfortunately. But
they kept moving the show around too. Right?
It wasn't their fault. That's the thing.
Were the ratings really that bad?
They-
I mean,
they
it
were
lasted
kind of-
for 2 seasons.
But they wanted more. I think they knew by the end of the second season that, well, the first season, as we're going to see in the next few episodes, they kind of did one-offs of like, here's a special segment on Lord Bravery, and now here's one on,
The gnomes.
The gnomes,
Yeah.
exactly. All these different things. And then in the second season, the WB was like, no, you need to just do a whole 30 minutes with Freakazoid. And they were still good episodes, but you kind of missed out on that kind of randomness of
where it
these
can be
other little
anything
characters.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me tell you what happened here with the Freakazoid theme here. So we're watching this, and 2 girls are watching it, and they're laughing. They really liked the first segment, and they were laughing with the whole everybody down
Dance
thing.
of Doom. Oh, yeah, the part of that. The caricature of Dance of Doom, whenever the ghost is, and they have the different names of Dance of Doom.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Look at that.
The what from Hades? The
Yeah.
hop from Hades, I think. Anyway.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, we forgot to mention Weena McCater, the hopping woman, and all the other names that John McCann came up with.
Yeah.
So many good things in this. Anyway. Moving on. One of the 2 of the girls were like, "Who's that? Is that a girl version of Freakazoid?" And it's like, "Yep." And they're like, "Oh, that's cool." And they're like, "And she never appears on the show." And they're like, "Why?" They were so upset. They really wanted to see that Freakazoid show up, but I know I broke their hearts too soon.
I was looking in the wiki, the fan wiki. Apparently, there was an episode written for Freakazoid, but it was never.
It had to be Steph, right?
Yeah. That's how it was written. It was written as Steph being Freakazoid, but
Yeah.
they don't know if that was the intention of this, because it was different writers by then. So it was in season 2. Someone was finally going to get down to writing Freakazoid, but it just never
happened. Oh well. Well, yeah, that's our quick little theme, and now we close it off with the most exciting segment in the world. This is Handman.
And now, another chapter in Freakazoid's never-ending search for the perfect sidekick. The Sidekick Chronicles. Today's episode, Handman.
Handman was written by Tom Ruger, and it was directed by Jack Hyder. Or Hater. Don't be a hater. Nathan, what happens here in Handman?
All right. Well, Freakazoid is trapped. Well, he's surrounded by a bunch of cannons and guns pointing right at him, and the Lobe has him surrounded, basically, with all these weapons. And Freakazoid, he has nothing to do except call in his sidekick, and the Lobe, which is the bad guy there, he says, "You don't have a sidekick?" And out pops his sidekick, Handman, which looks very much like Freakazoid's hand.
I'm right here. Handman, you've come in the nick of time. I wouldn't let you down, Freakazoid. Sorry, it's Freakazy, Freakabee. No, Freakazoid. No, Freakazoid. No, Freakazoid. Freakazy, Freebaloo, Mimala. No, say Freakazoid. Freakazy. No, Freakazoid. Freakazoid. Stop.
The Lobe even points that out, too.
Yeah, he says that's not a sidekick. That's your hand. But clearly it's not, because Freakazoid can even drink water while Handman's talking, and luckily Handman uses his whole body to punch the Lobe in the face and knocks him into the guns, and then the whole factory blows up. And it's not over, because Handman has found a lover, which also looks kind of like Freakazoid's other hand, but this one has a wig on it, and they start kissing. for a couple.
Is that
minutes.
a wig or is that her natural hair?
I think
can't tell.
it might be. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Okay. Could never tell.
And wouldn't you know it? They end up getting married.
Yes, I could see that Hand Man and Hand Girl were made for each other. Of course, I couldn't stand in their way. And while I may have been losing a sidekick, I knew I was gaining a daughter. Or the upper hand, or something, I don't know. Do you, Hand Man, take this hand to be your lawful wedded wife, to have and to hold till death do you part, or till some horrible accident with an electric can opener or a combine?
I do. Me too.
So that's how Freakazoid loses his sidekick. That's why he doesn't have a sidekick, his best sidekick, of course. And you would think it might end there with them getting married, but no, we're now on their honeymoon, and they're kissing, and
for a very awkward time laying in bed together.
Yes, and kissing.
Yes.
There's like 3 minutes of kissing, I think, throughout this whole...
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And some awesome fireworks, too.
Yeah, we get live action fireworks. Stock footage, and then it ends with Freakazoid saying, well, I'm sure they'll have a happy life together, unlike another couple I know, and it focuses up on what looks like his feet, but they're talking and yelling at each other, and it's very funny, and that's how it ends.
You are so cold! So says the Ice Queen. Ice Queen, my foot! Exactly! Just stay on your own side of the bed, will you? Don't start with me! Oh, yeah, let me tell you something! Don't start that whooping and dumping!
Yeah, and there we go. The lovely feet. We get to hear Paul Rugg's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different voices that he did in this one scene.
Well, yeah. Are you counting his priest's voice?
Oh, that's true. Well, that's true.
He does an accent.
Well,
for
it's
that.
still Freakazoid
It's
just
Freakazoid.
doing a priest voice. But anyway, yeah. So I guess you're right. There's only a couple real references in this. I mean, there's Senior Wences, who used to be on the Ed Sullivan Show. Used to have a character that was his hand, but according to Paul Rugg on the DVD, he's actually referencing the whole Freakazy, that whole bit thing going on. It's actually a Jerry Lewis bit, and if I can find a clip of what that sounds like, I'll put it in right here.
Now, when you get to the wardrobe department, you ask for the head, Mr. Bape Wozenthal.
Who?
Bape Wozenthal. He's the head of the wardrobe.
Ben Van Vincent.
No.
Basin.
Well, it's hard. I'll help you. Say Bape.
Bape.
Woes.
Ent.
All. Bape Wozenthal.
Ben Payfinton.
No. Well, forget it. Just follow me.
Ben Pay-Bo.
This part of the pilot episode, Paul Rugg has been noted as saying he knew that they could do anything they wanted to in this series when he saw that Tom wrote this, and it just went on forever.
Steven signed off on it.
Oh, yeah. When Steven signs off on, oh, yeah, this is good. Do this.
Just like,
he's like, wow, we can do whatever we want in this show. Because this, you think it's going to end, and then it keeps going. You think it's going to be a little bit of kissing, but it keeps going. You think it's that, they're going to get married, and they could leave, like they just go off in the car and the end. But no, we have to show the honeymoon, and then we don't have to show they got married and had a honeymoon, but we have to show them in bed together, and then we not have to show them in bed together, but we have to show the people the feet fighting
which
each
are
other.
Very funny. I think it's a great payoff for the end.
That's where we probably have the one other reference of note, and that is that the foot voice of the girl right there is actually Paul Rugg's impression of Jean McCurdy.
Don't start with me!
Those are our references. And Kelly, what did you think of Handman?
It was different. I mean, it kind of reminded me when I was a kid, because I would draw little faces on my hand and, have them talk, and I'd have my hands kiss and stuff. So I was like, oh my gosh, I actually did that as a kid. So it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, kind of was it. There's a part in and I don't know if this has anything to do with it, maybe a little bit, but there's like the movie Hans Christian Andersen where Danny Kaye he does Thumbelina, and then there's this little bit where Thumbelina kisses his other thumb, and then there's two faces and they're dancing with each other. So it kind of reminded me of that kind of stuff too. This is very, Freakazoid. He's a silly guy, and I just love the lobe as well.
That's not a proper sidekick, that's just your hand.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. It's just your hand, you simpleton.
The lobe was voiced by David Warner, and he played some other characters. I mean, he played Ra's al Ghul on Batman the Animated Series, but he was in a lot of serious films. I think he was in I think it's The Time Traveler. Time After Time. I think that's what it is. It was cool to see a serious actor acting silly, basically saying, "That's just your hand. Just it is your hand. Stop it." That's cute stuff. Nathan, what did you like about this last segment?
I just love the voice that Paul Rudd does for so funny. And yeah, it's a great intro for Loeb. Makes you want to see him again because he becomes basically a regular based on this segment, I think.
Yeah.
In one of the Tumblr reference guides, it says that this might be based off the Argument Clinic from Monty Python. I could kind of see that maybe, but
I'm here to have an argument.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But, I mean, they're just having an argument, so it's kind of hard to say. It could be
yeah. I mean, I could kind of see that maybe it's based off the argument sketch, but I don't know. I think it's just good stuff. And that pretty much does it for our episode. Now, there were 2 gag credits, sort of. I mean, one says Weird Guy, and it says Emmett Nervend as kind of a gag credit. And then it says Emmett Nervend. By the way, Kelly, just as another heads up, every credit is going to have a little thing of saying, find Emmett Nervend X amount of times in this episode. And today they said the Emmett Nervend could be found 6 times in this episode.
Wow.
Do you have any idea who Emmett Nervend? This is a character that showed up 6 times in this. He never says anything in this series. He's just in the background. I'm not even
or
going to say
the foreground,
even. Or the foreground. Do you have any idea who this guy might be?
No.
Okay. There's a weird guy with a strange smile.
Mm-hmm.
And he's
kind of reminds me of Hans Moleman.
He kind of looks like Hans Moleman from The Simpsons, except if Hans Moleman was had a manic smile
and a huge head,
and is always facing in the same profile. Like he never turns he never moves. He very rarely moves, I should say.
Yeah, I think he moves in the songs.
Yeah, he's in 6 times. I guess you can count 6 times because he's at the opening theme. He's in Dance of Doom. And then you can see him 4 times in the Freakazoid and Friends theme.
Because I was like, you see him once in Dance of Doom, really obviously.
I
think,
think. They count each time you see him in that, so it's another time. So there you go. I liked those as a kid because you could it made you rewatch the episode and see where is this guy. It was almost like Blue's Clues, sort of, right?
Yeah, they have a little snail in Blue's Clues.
Right. Where's the snail? They never talked about it, but it was just there.
Yeah.
And I think that even in Adventure Time, they even have a snail.
Yeah, I think so.
In Adventure Time, too, that they never point out, but it's in every episode. So it's kind of a cool Easter egg to find Emmett Nervend in this. So we'll have to keep your eyes open for him and see if your count matches the end thing. Oh, yeah, and of course, Freakazoid at the end says,
wake up your folks and tell them you're hungry. Go!
Which that's funny. That's our first episode, and I think we should go ahead and get to our Water Tower rating. Well, what do you guys think? Out of 5 water towers, how many would you give this particular episode? Let's start. I'm going to start with
yourself.
Well, I know what I'm going to give it. I want to know what you guys want. Let's go with Nathan. What are you going to give it?
Okay. I'm going to go. I mean, I'm going to say 4 water towers because I laughed a lot, but I can't give it like a 5 on the first episode because then you can't go higher than. I'll say 4.
Okay.
I really like it a lot, but yeah.
All right, Kelly, what did you think?
Since it was my first, I really have nothing to compare it to as far as other episodes. So I'll just give it a 3, sort of a baseline.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I'm going to give it a 5 because even though I think there are other episodes that are just as good as this one. I'm not saying they're better, but
yeah,
I'm saying
there probably are better ones even.
But I love this one.
I know.
The thing is, my brain hits all the nostalgia marks for me too. So it's really almost impossible for me to get this anything other than a 5 out of 5. It makes me laugh. I've seen it dozens and dozens of times, and it still makes me laugh. And I think that's a good sign that it's a 5 out of 5 for me. So a nice split. I'm glad that Kelly, you didn't hate this one, right? I mean, it's definitely different, but I'm glad you didn't hate it. Which it's a good sign. It's a good sign. I'm thinking.
Yeah, because if I did hate it, I would say so because I am very honest.
Oh yes, we know.
It had Steven Spielberg in it, so she couldn't hate it too
Yeah, exactly.
much.
Well, I know you're going to have to rewatch
I didn't even
it.
see him, but
Well, you have to rewatch it, and then you'll give it a 3.5, I think. Probably.
Yeah, you'll probably up it up at least a little.
Well, let's go ahead and before we close up shop, let's go ahead and get to some listener feedback. So Nathan, hit us with the listener feedback song.
Listener feedback is this song is original by Nathan. Thank you.
Awesome. First one here comes from Soundtrack Lover 2015 or 2015, however you want to say it. Soundtrack Lover says, listening on Podcoin and loving it. I just started listening to this podcast on Podcoin from episode 1. I loved it. I've always enjoyed the Animaniacs since it aired on Kids WB. I really enjoy listening to how much fun they have. Being a trivia nut, I love the trivia throughout the episode. Stuff I already knew and new things too. I can't wait to hear more. 5 stars. Thank you so much. Soundtrack Lover, and we love soundtracks too. I'm assuming Soundtrack Lover 2015 must love John Williams.
I would hope so.
And speaking of soundtracks, soundtrack news and music in general, we have some Animaniacs news to throw in real quick. Steve and Julie Bernstein, who did compositions for not only Animaniacs but also for Freakazoid, have been hired on the Animaniacs 2020 reboot. And how do we know that? Well, because Steve Bernstein said so on his Facebook page. You know how when you get a new job and you say, like, so-and-so, I just started working at blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You actually put down, I started working at Warner Brothers Animation for the Animaniacs 2020. I was like, oh,
I had to sign an NDA and everything.
I hope you didn't sign an NDA, Steve, because yikes. But so Steve and Julie Bernstein appear to both be working on the Animaniacs reboot, so that is very good news. That's the first really good news I've heard in a while, I think, for the reboot, because there really hasn't been that much news
confirmed. Yeah,
we have a lot of rumors that the voice actors
heavily implied
that the voice actors will be back, but again, no official announcements. Okay, we have one more review, and I'm surprised we haven't read this one yet. This came about a month ago from Cameron, and Cameron's been listening to our show for a long time, and she finally got around to leaving us a review on iTunes.
Well, we're finally getting around to reading
it. So I guess we're even, Cameron. Whatever. She says, fun podcast, and this is from Yes We Cam 98, a.k.a. Cameron. And Cameron says, awesome podcast from the 3 second-best Animaniacs fans. The first being me, of course. Haha. She put a little sly face. I don't know what that's called.
Smirk
face. I love how they explain all the pop culture references on the show since I'm young and I don't know much about old people movies.
Burn.
That's
why we didn't read that.
Jeez. Old people movies. P.S. This is weird, but I think I saw someone who looked exactly like Joey at Animaniacs Live in Tucson a little over a year ago. Wink face. And that's true. And Cameron, I met Cameron.
You saw someone look like Cameron. So
I saw someone look like Cameron, coincidentally. I actually met Cameron right at Tucson Comic-Con before the Randy Rogel panel. And I saw her. She was wearing an Animaniacs shirt. And I'm such a promoter of the podcast. If I see somebody with an Animaniacs related anything, I'm going to hand them a business card, right? I got them in my wallet, ready to go. So I see her and I'm like, oh, here, Animaniacs. You like Animaniacs? And she's like, Joey? And I'm like, yes. And she goes, and I found out it was Cameron. So I was so excited.
Awesome.
Met her right there. And I gave her a card anyway. I was like, sure, you can have a card. And then, of course, saw her later in the audience for Animaniacs Live, a.k.a. Animaniacs in Concert. And I recorded some audio of her. Unfortunately, I recorded it with a horrible voice recorder that was brand new, and so the audio sounded horrible. So we never heard her on the show. But this kind of goes into a promotion that Nathan and I are excited about. Nathan, what is going on at the end of May that our listeners might hopefully be interested in?
All right. Well, if you're in the Phoenix area, if you've heard of Fan Fusion, which I have never heard of before.
Have you heard of Phoenix Comic-Con?
Yes.
Okay. This is it.
Okay.
It's new name.
I'm going to call it Comic-Con, but it's actually Fan Fusion.
Phoenix Fan Fusion. Yes.
Joey and I will be at the Phoenix Comic-Con.
Fan Fusion.
Phoenix Comic-Con.
Fan Fusion.
And we'll be doing a panel there on the Saturday, I believe.
Yeah, it was that Saturday, May 25th, I think is what the thing is.
We got 25th. A prime spot, too.
10:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So get there early. Of course, all, subject to change, I'm sure, but because they haven't released the official thing. But we have been told that at least that is our spot as of right now. So we should have an Animaniacs panel. We're going to talk about our podcast.
We'll do a live show.
We'll do a live show. So if you are listening to us and you're in the Phoenix area, buy your tickets for Phoenix Fan Fusion now. Tickets go up in price starting April 12th. So you have a little bit of time to get your ticket purchased before they go up in price. It's a lot of fun. Phoenix Fan Fusion each year gets a lot of great celebrities. As far as right now, I don't think there's too many. The only voice actor I know, and I'm horrible with a lot of voice actors' names, so I don't know his name, but I do know he's the voice of Finn from Adventure Time.
Oh,
he'll be
I
there.
like him.
Yeah, he's awesome. And there's also going to be some Star Wars people there too, which I check out. Like, that's awesome. So Billy D. Williams is going to be there, and Ray Park, of course, a.k.a. Darth Maul, is going to be there. Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, is going to be there. I'm excited at that. And let's see, Prince Humperdinck, and the voice of Jack Skellington, whoever that actor is. I forget his name too.
Chris Sarandon.
Thank you very much. He'll be there. Who else? Oh yeah, Elijah Wood is going to be there.
And we'll be there.
Signing autographs. We cost, you know what? Most celebrities you have to pay them $30, $40, sometimes $70 for an autograph or more. Nathan and I will do it for free.
We'll mention this podcast.
Yeah. We'll charge you about $50 per business card we give you.
Yeah.
We'll put it on your bill. But other than that, it will be completely free. I got to make money on this podcast somehow, Nathan.
I don't know.
Somehow we got to do it. Anyway. So head on over to Phoenix Fan Fusion and check it out. It should be a lot of fun, and we hope to see you there. Well, let's go and get to some contact information. Kelly, where can people get in contact with you online?
They can find me on Twitter at Yoda Princess, YODAPRNCSS, or email me, Kelly at BigShinyRobot.com.
And Nathan, what about you?
I'm on Twitter, DjangoFT, that's me.
All right, as for the Animaniacast, we're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and some other things I'm sure that I never go to, but we're probably on there too. But a great place to head is actually our Discord channel, which is discord.animaniacast.com, and that way you could talk to us, plus you can also talk to hosts and writers from RetroZap. We are a proud member of the RetroZap Podcast Network. RetroZap is a great place to go to if you're looking for great podcasts, great articles on pop culture in general, and really just any kind of thing that you're into that's nerdy or geeky is over there at retrozap.com. So head over there today and you won't be disappointed. You can also subscribe to the RetroZap podcast feed on your favorite podcast player. Ooh. Well, that'll do it for today's episode. So for Nathan and Kelly, this is Joey saying good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
This podcast is not endorsed by Warner Brothers or Amblin Entertainment and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Freakazoid, the Warner Brothers logo, all names, pictures, and sounds are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the Animaniacast unless otherwise indicated.
Another job well done thanks to Handman.
My hero! Darling,